An investment of $100 billion over the next 20 years and a promise of nearly 50,000 jobs. That's what Micron's plan to build a computer chip campus in Clay would mean for the region. Joining me now to talk more about this is Jared Bernstein, a member of President Biden's Council of Economic Advisors. Jared, thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
What message does this type of investment send to the United States and the world?
The U.S. is back. The president has promised to reinvigorate U.S. manufacturing, particularly in highly globally competitive areas like computer chips, and he is delivering big time on that promise. This is, of course, a very exciting announcement for us, yes, for the people of New York, but the legislation behind this, the CHIPS Act, is having this kind of impact in states across the country. So a real win for the American workforce.
Can you talk a little bit more about the CHIPS bill? Micron CEO says that they wouldn't be in Central New York without it.
I think that's a key point. One of the things that we've tried to do here in the Biden administration is revitalize American industry by working with the private sector. That is, we recognize that crowding in, that is, creating incentives to encourage this kind of private investment in areas like yours is really at the core of President Biden's agenda. For too many years, we've seen an economy that's growing on Wall Street and some of our biggest cities and simply not reaching people in rural areas, people outside of say New York and the West Coast. Lots of GDP growth that doesn't reach the middle class. That is antithetical to Bidenomics. Bidenomics is all about economic growth, reaching the people who are helping to bake the pie. And what you see today is a real deep investment in precisely that kind of an outcome in a critical area for U.S. production, that is semiconductors.
Jared, can you speak to the importance of making more microchips in the U.S.? Micron CEO says 2% are made in the U.S., but Micron can grow that to 10%, they say.
Well, I think the best way to answer that question is to think what happened during the pandemic supply crunch. At one point, I remember a chip factory in Malaysia closed for a couple of weeks because of COVID, and something like 6 car producers shut down for numerous weeks here. That's how much that lack of resiliency in the U.S. supply chain for computer chips hurt us. The president saw that and he said, guess what? We're going to do something about it. We're not going to set up a government chip factory. We're going to work with the private sector, with smart companies like Micron, to help crowd in that kind of private investment and correct that supply side shortage by building and standing up a domestic industry here in this country. And I think the best way to think about it is to look at the critical importance of chips, not just in cars, because we saw that, but also in national security and medical devices and practically everything you use, including the means by which you and I are talking right now, of course.
Absolutely. So Micron coming to Central New York is transformational. What type of growth could this region see? Oh,
yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars in investment initially, growing to 20 billion this decade, 100 billion over 20 years, tens of thousands of jobs. And as you say, transformational. By the way, I think an important part that sometimes gets lost here when we talk about this billion and that billion and microchips and national security, let's get down to people. Like at the end of the day, what matters is that the people in upstate New York get the kind of workforce training and the entree into these jobs, thousands, whether it's constructing the fabrication plants, which is probably about 40,000 workers over time, or whether it's the thousands of workers who get the permanent jobs. And that's part of this too, making sure that these programs connect directly to the people of New York State, including providing them with the worker training they need to be able to do these jobs.
What would you say it was about upstate and Central New York that made it so attractive to Micron?
Well, there's certainly land there. There's some very good transportation opportunities so that you can get your goods where you need to get them. And I think that there's a workforce that has long awaited these kinds of investments and is ready and willing to step up and do what needs to be done. I think the governor's played a role here. I guess what you see here really is public-private partnership working together in a way that President Biden and Governor Hochul have long envisioned. But now you see it happen, okay? Lots of politicians talked about this. They talked about infrastructure week. They talked about investing in America. You see it here happening in front of your eyes because people like Joe Biden and Governor Hochul rolled up their sleeves and got to work. And so I think that's what's special about this deal.
Absolutely. Well, Jared, thank you so much for your time and insight today.
My pleasure.
Oh, bye.